We got a controversy, sort of a big noon controversy, if you will, in college football, and that is the way that the TV contracts are structured for the Big Ten. Some of you are kicking off games at noon like every week in a row, and it's become a full-blown college football crisis. Now, there are two things you need to know about me. One, I love college football, and I love college football fans, and I don't like talking about any sport other than college football. Number two, I love noon kickoffs. I love them. I love them. I love them. But number one supersedes number two. And as someone who fancies himself the future commissioner of college football, I got to say, a lot of you are angry about this big noon kickoff situation, and I have heard you, and I'm willing to take my own best interests and put them on the shelf for a second. So, as far as the rest of this show is concerned, my love for noon kickoffs is irrelevant, total moot point, or mute point, as I used to say until like 4 years ago when someone corrected me. And I am just here to talk about what matters to you. And what matters to you is you guys are sick of it. I mean, we have got a situation in the Big Ten right now where they've got multiple television partners, but there's exclusivity in the broadcast windows, blah, blah, blah. What does all that mean? Well, it means if you're really good and therefore Fox wants to feature you a vast majority of the time, i.e. Ohio State, you end up in a situation like the Buckeyes find themselves in right now. And that is they turn on their TVs and they watch Bama and Georgia and LSU in primetime constantly. Meanwhile, Ohio State, as of November 30th, which is a couple of weeks away, they will have wrapped their season, I kid you not, this is not a typo, playing 6 consecutive noon Eastern time kickoffs. Now, how does this happen? Well, it happens because that's what Ohio State and the member institutions in the Big Ten signed off on. That's what happened. It's tough to overstate how big of a disaster Kevin Warren was as the commissioner of the Big Ten. Just call it like it is. It's okay. You can speak out against the guy. He's not around anymore. They celebrated. Do you remember this? We talked about it on the show, Colin. It was back then. It was just me and you. Remember when the Big Ten signed their brand new revolutionary media rights deal, and what was the big selling point? Well, two of them. One was 7 years, $8 billion. Fairly noteworthy. Not even management makes that much, I don't think. Inflation, I don't know what's done to his salary. Secondly, the big takeaway was while the SEC has signed exclusively with ESPN, we're in bed with everybody. My word, not theirs. And the whole flex of this media rights deal with the Big Ten was not only do we have our deal with Fox, we've got our deal with CBS. I work for CBS, full disclosure. And we've got our deal with NBC. So we're going to spread our product out amongst all the networks. Well, here's what's really happened. What's really happened is the devil was in the details. Gasp. Yes, I know. The devil was in the details. And as it turns out, yes, they signed with multiple networks, but each network had window exclusivity. Now, that is a real fancy TV jargon way of saying that Fox was always going to have the noon window every Saturday, CBS was always going to have the 3:30 window every Saturday, and NBC was always going to have, I think, the 7:30 window every Saturday. Fox gets a majority of the number one picks. There's kind of a lottery system, but Fox gets first choice most weeks. Fox cannot choose an Oregon game or a USC game because that would be a 9:30 local kickoff for them. So that was just baked into the bylaws of the Big Ten. And so in a conference right now where it's Ohio State, and then if you take Oregon out of the equation, Penn State, Michigan's a big brand, but they're bad this year. There's not much to choose from, guys. It's not an inventory that's as deep as the SEC where you can go 7 or 8 teams deep and you've still got a playoff contender on your hands and you've still got a really nationally relevant move-the-meter sort of team on your hands. The Big Ten has not followed through on their end of the deal. The conference is not deep enough. There's not enough quality inventory on the shelf. And so really at the end of the day, Fox, as much as you want to demonize them, and I don't work for Fox, although I love the guys over there, they're doing no different than what you nor I would do if we ran the network, given the letter of the law and the contract that we signed, and that is get Ohio State on as much as possible. And if we can't get Ohio State, let's go get Penn State. And, by the way, maybe they'll be playing each other, and who cares if it's in State College? We cannot put our game on in prime time. That's what this contract that we signed with this league says, so we're going to put it on at high noon. I was at this game a couple of weeks ago. Now, selfishly, I loved it because I could get out of there, but for the rest of the 111,000 in attendance, I wished like nothing else it was at night for you guys. Whiteout, it would have been a whiteout game. Joel Klatt stepped up, and Joel Klatt, friend of the program, made several points, because folks were attacking Fox over this. Man, why does Fox keep making us play at noon? Why does Fox keep putting all the big games at noon? They don't. That's the window they identified a long time ago, and they were right to identify that noon window. It always baffled me that college football just kind of voluntarily punted the noon window and waited until 3:30 or 7 or 8 to put the big games on. And Fox said, wait a second. So this entire neighborhood's filled, but this lot here, no one's moved into, no one's built on it, and doesn't look like it's zoned off. There's nothing wrong with it. Let's build on it. And they built on it. And they built a really, really nice house on it. So much so that you wonder, why did no one move in before? But then they signed a deal with the Big Ten and this whole window exclusivity business that indicated if Fox gets a big game, you're not putting it at 7:30. You're putting that thing right there. You're putting it at noon. And that's the way it's going to be. Your conference signed off on that. Your conference was the one that negotiated that. There are a lot of reasons why that got negotiated that way, but at the end of the day, that's why it got negotiated. Fox has done nothing different than what you nor I would do. Klatt was pointing that out the other day, and then they brought the torches and pitchforks for him, and I'm just sitting over here in Nashville watching him have to defend himself, and eventually I knew what he'd do. He'd just tap out on social because he's got other things to do, but he was making some good points. You guys had a problem with some of the points. Like Klatt's out there saying, the numbers have been great, the ratings have been great, and then you're yelling back, of course the ratings have been great. We have no other option. What are we going to do? Not watch Ohio State football? Like the big-time rating in the noon window doesn't justify putting these games in the noon window. We would watch at 2 a.m. like we lived in Okinawa, Japan if we needed to. And he's right, and you guys are right. Everyone's right. And I would remind you, by the way, we got a lot of folks watching live. Please sub to this channel because we do the show free. We would like to keep it free. And all we do is talk college football all year. Nothing other than college football on this channel. So we appreciate you guys. But it all comes down to who you serve, really. Okay, so that's a lot of complaining. I just recapped a lot of the complaints that exist in the Big Ten right now. It's not a problem in the SEC because in the SEC, they signed with one partner. So ESPN has the entire day. They've got a noon kickoff window. They got 3:30. Then they'll stagger another one to 4:15. Then they'll do a 6 and a 7:30/8. Like they have the entire day. And they select the biggest games in the conference and they put them wherever they want to. And so it's great in the SEC. It's not so great for some of you in the Big Ten right now. If the Big Ten were deeper, if the Big Ten were shaped like the SEC right now, if the SEC existed under the Big Ten's television infrastructure, it'd be a lot more favorable to you because you wouldn't have to load Georgia up with half a dozen noon kickoffs because Alabama's really good and Texas is really good and South Carolina's become really good and A&M's fascinating and LSU's been in the mix and here comes Ole Miss and whoa, look at Tennessee. It's deep in the SEC. It's not deep in the Big Ten. It's Ohio State. It's Oregon, but we can't have them play a noon game on the West Coast. And so what is it? It's Penn State. That's it. That's really it right now. So that's unfortunate. And if Iowa or Minnesota or Michigan State or Michigan this year, Wisconsin, if those teams and brands were holding up their end of the bargain, Nebraska, then it'd be a different story, but it's not. So that's the complaining. That's the complaint. I've said nothing different than all of you have already said. What I want to do is try and find solution. So anytime there's something wrong in college football, whether it be officiating or whether it be too many games or kicking off in the noon window and we'd love to see them later in the day, everybody automatically reverts to defending their position. I got to get defensive. I got to explain why it is the way it is. Well, how about less defending and more finding ways to fix it? Right now, Fox, NBC, CBS, they're all within their letter of the law that they signed through contract to do whatever they're currently doing. No one's doing anything illegal. No one's doing anything underhanded. It's operating the way it's supposed to operate based on the model that was agreed to. The model sucks. The model you signed off on sucks. The model the previous commissioner of the Big Ten and the member institutions up there signed off on sucks. So you got to ask yourself who you serve. Do you serve each other? Do you serve the coaches and the presidents? Do you serve nameless, faceless television executives? Or do you serve the people that give that media rights deal its value to begin with, the fans. Ooh, the fans. I know you don't like to talk about them, but they are the reason for your very existence right now. A lot of you hold down 6- and 7-figure jobs because those fans allow you to exist. They allow this industry to exist. This is not the football business. This is the entertainment business. We've talked about this many times before. So do you serve those people? Because if you do serve those people, and at least you claim you do at your upfronts, if you serve those people, then you find a way to inject some fluidity into this situation. This starts at the league office, by the way. It starts in the Big Ten league office. It starts with Tony Pate, who is from this world, by the way, and is not responsible for this mess, but ultimately may be responsible for trying to find a way to clean it up. If you mean what you say, when you claim that you're in it for the fans and you want the best presentation for the fans, then you get your network partners in the same room. And you say, guys, on one hand, everyone's following the letter in this contract. But on the other hand, it is totally stupid for us to have Ohio State go to State College and kick that game off at noon. It's ludicrous for Penn State thereafter, a couple of weeks later, to have to settle for Washington as their whiteout game. Oh, and by the way, we're going to throw it on Peacock where no one has any clue how to present it. It's stupid. It makes no sense. It doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't even serve us. It ultimately erodes away at the value of the very product that we're being paid $8 billion to license out, because nobody wins when everyone loses. And the Big Ten as a product is not going anywhere. It's not going to disappear. But the value is maximized, or would be maximized, in my opinion, if everyone in the room just worked together. And there's a little fluidity. And no, I don't have to come off this stance because this piece of paper, this contract says I don't have to, but I will anyway. Because ultimately, if I give a little here, I can take a little 3 weeks later, and we can both get more favorable time slots, and we can all serve the conference better. Then the conference elevates because Ohio State's one primetime game per year is not Western Michigan. I'm not kidding you. That's a real thing this year. And they have that primetime spectacle every couple of weeks, just like the big boys down south do. Those are recruiting tools, guys. Do you understand how hard it is for high school football players to play on Friday nights and then get to Columbus, Ohio on a Saturday, or get to State College, Pennsylvania on a Saturday? You are penny wise, pound foolish in counting your dollar bills and saying, oh, screw it, the contract's the contract. People will tune in no matter what. These ratings are good no matter what. It's so ignorant. It doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve your fans. It doesn't even serve you long term. It's just everyone has 5-foot thinking instead of 5-year thinking in this sport these days. So who do you serve? I simply ask that at the league office and at the network level. Who do you serve? If you serve fans, you'll find a way to fix this. No one in the room thinks that the current structure is the best suited structure. Everyone knows it's jacked up. Find a way to fix it. Everyone shouts at the NCAA because they're so archaic and they're so slow to change, and it's like trying to turn the Titanic in Moon Lake. Phoenix City residents will understand the reference. Well, don't act like them then. Don't be like them. Learn a lesson from our friends in Indianapolis and do something different. Actually serve the fans for a change.